Mr. Anderson? Mr. Feldmetzger?
Here.
Mr. Johnson?
Here.
Mr. LaSalle?
Here.
Mr. Mahoney? Mr. Meyer?
Here.
Ms. Shaftsma? Mr. Wallace?
Here. I just saw John walk in. He should probably be here in a minute.
Okay. Well, I assume everyone's had an opportunity to read the minutes for October and November. And would someone like to move to approve those minutes?
Move to approve. A second.
Any discussion? Nope. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No opposed? Motion carries. I wanted to thank those that are involved in a lot of the community efforts. I know that which of you are involved in hello, help me. The concept plan.
South End.
South End, thank you. I couldn't get Park Place out of my, so South End concept plan, and appreciate the work you're doing there, and Fred and your involvement, attendance at the Oregon City Trail Alliance, that's appreciated. Also wanted to recognize John Lewis and also Lita
Froman Goodrich.
Froman Goodrich, thank you for their efforts to provide signage for Stein Oil down at the Jug Handle project, so interchange there. So that's very much appreciated. So anyway, with that, let's continue on. And we have the agenda analysis. Is there anything that we would like to add, subtract, or move up or down on the agenda?
I do have 3 quick items that I need to plug in there, and I didn't really get a chance to even mention this to Kathy, but so she's surprised, as usual, with my great additions here. So actually, there's only 2. One of them is this comment that the Commission's been making about getting committee reports, annual committee reports. So I just want to reemphasize that. And then the other one was to talk a little bit about the TSP permitting process timeline. So I'll squeeze those in the end, if you don't mind.
Okay.
And I know what there was. That was the third item. There's a concept in our TSP. Maybe I'll cover this under the TSP timeline. It's not related to timeline, but it is related to the TSP, which is a couplet that's been included in the TSP document for 14th and 15th. So kind of an interesting drawing. I'll share it with you in hard copy, and then we can talk about it a little bit. It's really for you to take home and kind of think about a little bit, because it's got some complexities to it that you might be interested in.
Sounds good. Kind of a show and tell thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so with that, do we have public comment? This is the time for public comment?
Gabe's with Murray Smith and Associates, so he's actually our first presenter. Business discussion item A.
All right. Well, with that, since we have no public comment, we'll take a non-public comment.
Now, I just want to warn you that I've been told not to put this down until the meeting starts, so you have to listen to the noise. And I'm supposed to put it back up when he's done.
That's unbearable, Kathy.
Sorry.
All right. Well, thank you for the opportunity to come and speak tonight. John asked that I would come and give you all an update on the 2012-2013 pavement maintenance planning process.
Mm-hmm.
So my name is Gabriel Kropp with Murray Smith & Associates. We've been working with the city initially on this pavement maintenance plan. It was a 5-year plan. And I was actually here about a little over a year ago, November 2011, to talk about that plan.
Thank you, John.
And then since that time, we've been working with the city to actually get the paving work completed in 2012. And then we're also helping them with similar work in 2013. And so tonight what I'd like to do is just give you a quick update on what was completed in 2012 and what we're planning to do here in 2013.
Great, thank you.
So this slide is just a scan of our cover sheet of our plan documents for the work that was completed in 2012. And it just shows the general locations where paving work was completed. So the streets that were paved or had at least a portion of the work paved here back in 2012 were South 2nd Street, 7th Street, Division Street, Ogden Drive, Barclay Avenue, Pleasant Avenue, and Barclay Hills Drive, and Birchwood, Holmes, Josephine, and Netzel. So that's quite a few streets that were paved using the PMUF funds. And then there are a few streets that are on here that we intended to pave but didn't quite have enough time in 2012 that we're planning to do here in 2013. And those are portions of Malala and Hazel and Gaffney. So just to give you an idea of some of the work that was completed, it wasn't just paving work. There was some other work that was included as well. This is just one of the ADA ramps, curb ramps that we replaced as part of the 2012 work. There was ramps on South 2nd and 7th Avenue that were replaced as part of this project. We didn't comprehensively go through every street and update all of them, but focused on the higher priority ones in 2012 where pedestrians seem to have more usage than some of the other ones.
I do want to mention, because this item comes up for debate from time to time, the ADA laws. Some agencies have been sued over their lack of replacement of ADA ramps, and there's been some question about what would trigger an ADA improvement, and we've essentially determined if we're doing a paving project in the area, we should do that. But there are some special projects. Division's one of them, for instance, where we paved Division Street. We basically put a thin mill and overlay on that, recognizing that that's a boulevard project that's going to require much more design and engineering. So on those sidewalks, we didn't really change them, even though there are some ADA compliance issues along Division Street, because we know that we're going to have probably someday along there wider sidewalks and changed catch basin locations, and that's going to be a boulevard enhancement when we finally can get to doing that project. But we didn't have the funding, if you remember, to do a full boulevard project. So we didn't want to waste any of the dollars we had available for ADA improvements on boulevards like that. So just so you know,
Good.
Try and pick those where they make the most sense.
Did notice, though, that you put the pavement up to the sidewalk in places where you didn't necessarily change the sidewalk, but brought the pavement up to it so they could actually come off of the sidewalks on the corners. So that's good.
Try to improve
Yeah.
access as best
Exactly.
as we can. Yep.
Just curious on the Malala up near the Fred Meyer there, would that be a boulevard project or would that be just an overlay?
Well, right now we've got it. Right now we're in a bit of a dilemma with regard to Malala, because we've also submitted a STIP application for Malala Boulevard. If we were successful in getting that grant, then we would pull this out of the paving project and save it for that STIP project. If you remember, Malala is also one of those special projects, kind of like Division. So really, all the intent of this 5-year plan was to go in there and do a thin mill and an overlay, not necessarily replacing ADA ramps. There's a couple of real bad ones in there that we may look at if it's just a pavement maintenance project. But it'd be nice to wrap all that into a STIP project and get the funding for that and do it later.
So if the STIP funding comes through, then you would do it more of a boulevard and sidewalks
Right.
and, okay.
And the dilemma that we're in is the STIP funding. I'm going to talk more about the STIP projects, but the schedule for that is not quite aligned with what we need for our 2013 pavement plan. So we're hoping to know whether or not we've made the 150% cut list on the STIP projects in probably April. So Murray Smith's going to move forward as though we're doing that project, but if it turns out it's on the 150% list, we'll probably pull it.
And then it would just become a paving.
Well, we probably wouldn't even pave it. We'd probably
Oh,
just
really?
let it continue to deteriorate until 2000. I think the funding for that is 2016, 15, 16, and 17. So it's still a ways off, but not that far off.
Didn't the state resurface it before it was turned over to the city?
Boy, that had been a long time ago, Steve. They probably did.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's been a while, though.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry.
No problem. This next slide is another picture of another curb ramp, but this one is specifically at Barkley Hills Drive at Malala Avenue. This was a unique item that was added to the project after talking more with John. The issue here was traffic coming out of Barkley Hills Drive onto Malala tends to back up because of left turns onto Malala. And so John asked us to take a look at what we could do. Essentially what we did here is move the curb ramp further back to create enough space for a dedicated right turn lane. So traffic that's turning right onto Malala can do that without having to wait for the left turners. So we've restriped it, paved it obviously up to the new curb location, and so haven't seen myself how that's been operating, but hopefully it's improvement on what was there.
Yeah, I seen it.
This is a picture of some utility work that was actually done prior to the paving. So again, this is one of the things that we focused on during the planning effort, was to try to identify locations where there were utility issues that should and could be resolved prior to paving work. So this was a new storm pipe that was put in to improve capacity on 7th Street. And so there was an ongoing problem with some backups on the storm line from what we understand from the city. And so we put in this extra connection to help address that issue, and so that we could keep from having to cut into the new pavement in the future and protect the city's investment in the paving. This is an example, this next slide, of a picture of where some full-depth reconstruction was completed. This was further down on Barkley Hills Drive. This is at a location where over time there was a dip that kind of formed. I think the city affectionately referred to it as an inverted speed bump through this area. And so with this project, we addressed that prior to paving. And so we did some other full-depth repairs on other streets too, such as Pleasant, Holmes, and Netzel, but tried to really minimize the amount of full-depth repair just because it does get rather expensive, so really only doing it where it was really necessary. This next photo is just a typical grinding operation. We did a lot of grinding work on various streets. This was to help keep the pavement elevation the same and not cover up any of the curbs with overlays and that type of thing. So there was a number of streets that got ground as well prior to paving. This next picture is one of the more unique things that was done with the 2012 work, the cement-treated subgrade work that was completed on Barkley Hills Drive. So this was something that we did just because the existing pavement section on Barkley Hills Drive was so thin, and we had these concrete gutters on the side of the road that you can see in that picture. So we were really limited with keeping the elevation of the pavement the same. So basically we ground the asphalt, tilled in cement to the existing material, recompacted, and put 4 inches of asphalt back on top. So this effectively gives a reconstructed section at a much lower cost than it would take to dig out everything. We're trying to use the materials that are already in place to the extent possible and get that section back up to what it should be. So I think this came out to worked out to about half the cost of what a full depth reconstruction would have otherwise cost for this section of road.
Just a quick question. So when you try some of these treatments that are somewhat unique, have they worked well before, and do you track them so you have this, and if it supposedly has a 20-year life, if it fails in 15, you can make a judgment about using it again?
Absolutely. Yeah, we're going to be very interested to see how this performs over time, although it should take a lot of time to figure out how it performs. This has been used in a number of other locations, just not so much in the city of Oregon City, from what I understand. We've used it usually on a lot more rural, lower volume roads. Even though this is a more urban road, it seemed to fit pretty well because the truck traffic wasn't so extensive, and it seems to be a real cost-effective approach. But yes, we're going to monitor it, and actually we're continuing to consider whether it should be used on other streets in the future. We'll look at it in a couple streets for 2013 to see if it is a good option as well.
If it takes too long to explain, don't worry about it. But I was curious about what is cement treated.
So essentially, after they grind off the existing asphalt, about 4 inches depth, they lay down a layer of cement on the ground, and then this machine comes behind it and tills it into the existing ground to about a 12-inch depth. So the tilling machine goes down about 12 inches and gets the cement mixed in, and then they include water with it, and then they have a compaction machine that comes in behind it. And so essentially, you can think of it as a low-strength concrete that uses soil and rock, whatever materials are already in the ground, in combination with that cement.
Interesting.
This next picture is just some typical paving, some overlay paving that was completed. You can see from the color of the trees that it was a little bit later in the season, in the fall. We'll try to get things going a little bit sooner in 2013. Part of the reason we weren't able to get a couple of the streets completed this year is because of the late season and the issues that come along with that. But we are actually starting design work now for 2013, so we have every intention of getting projects out earlier this year and getting the full slate completed this year. Sorry,
is
go
there
ahead,
an
John.
optimum time to bid these projects to get better prices?
Well, usually the optimal time to bid paving projects will be in the spring sometime, just because the work is typically completed over the summer. Bid prices will fluctuate depending on the time of year that you bid it, but summer is when you get the best quality of paving, and so sometimes projects can be bid in the fall or winter and completed off-season at a lower price, but the risk is much, much higher in terms of getting that paving work completed.
The temperature issues and
Right.
weather and so forth.
This next slide is just a list of some extra things that I haven't talked about yet that were completed. We did some what's called cured-in-place sewer pipe rehabilitation. So there was 2 sewer lines under some of the streets that we paved that were deteriorated. So what this was is essentially a liner that was blown through there, and it's cured in place, so it hardens in place and basically forms a brand new pipe on the inside of the existing pipe. So that was done to a few sewers that needed rehabilitation. There's some utility adjustments, valve boxes, sewer lids, those types of things. Some signal loops were replaced. We'll have a lot more on Molalla this next year that we'll have to replace, and striping as well at the very end.
I have a question. The cured-in-place sewer pipe rehabilitation, what is the life expectancy of that sort of a process as opposed to putting in a new sewer pipe?
It's supposed to be just as long as a new sewer pipe, if it's installed correctly. It has upwards of a 50-year lifespan on that. There's a lot that goes into it, into designing the right thickness of the liner, depending on the depth of the pipe, the condition of the existing pipe. We went with a very conservative design here, so we had every reason to expect to get a full design life as you would get it out of any other sewer pipe with this.
Possibly better. I mean, really, the thickness of this stuff is the same. I mean, it's not only is it the same structurally, it would be the same thing as just a direct buried pipe, but it's also kind of encased in the old system. So whatever little bit of structural integrity there is with the old system, that's kind of on the outside. That's just extra, and then you've got this other pipe that really is. It's not PVC, but it same kind of structural integrity as PVC.
Well, it kind of sparked my interest because in my former life I was involved with relining underground storage tanks. So it's kind of like that.
Interesting.
So this table is just a summary of the costs for the 2012 work. Total construction cost that was paid to the contractor was a little over $1.2 million. And of that, about $164,000 were related to the utility work. But the bulk was for the street work, the paving that we presented, a little over $1 million. And when you take into account the total area of the streets that we paved, works out. Oh, this is an old number. I did update it, but sorry, Kathy, I didn't send it to you. In square yards, that's $18.28 a square yard. Or $2.03 a square foot.
Well, it's bait and switch, I think, isn't it?
Yeah. You can do the math there, Blaine.
There you go. Yeah.
So just to give you an idea, too, of some of the other streets, the highest cost street that we calculated was Pleasant Avenue, for instance, at $27 a square yard compared to $18 on the average, and that one was because we had a lot more full-depth reconstruction work there, so it's going to be higher because of that. The lowest, by contrast, for instance, was Josephine. That was just a simple overlay. That one was about $11 a square yard. So there is quite a difference there depending on what's completed. Another interesting one was Barkley Hills Drive, where we did that cement treatment work. So Barkley Hills Drive, for a portion of it, we just did a simple grind and inlay, and the other portion we did the full grind, cement treatment, and then repave. So for the portion that had the cement treatment work done to it, we calculated about a $32 per square yard price on that. And that compares to what we normally see for full-depth reconstruction of about $55 a square yard. So that gives you a little bit of a feel for what the difference in cost could be. And like I said, we'll see how it performs over time to see if it performs like a full-depth section.
How do you determine, like on the Barkley Hills where you have the inverted speed hump? How do they determine if there's an engineering issue there? A cut into the hillside or poor drainage, or?
Yeah, we have to take a little bit of a comprehensive look at it, and I think from what we've heard from the city is there's a suspicion that there might be a historic kind of landslide issue in that area that might be very slowly happening over time. And I think in order to really get to the bottom of that, there might need to be some extra geotechnical investigations into that type of thing, which we didn't do for this project just because of the scope of the project, but we wanted to try to fix it as best we could.
So the cement treatment should help a little bit stabilize?
It should help bridge that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it looks, based on the way it's behaved over the years, like there could be some slide activity going on there, or it's just poor construction. But the way that sag kind of continued and everything kind of moved with it, the curbs had to be reset, the pavement had to be, we raised the grade of that from what it was before we started quite a bit. So I would say, yeah, there's probably some structural integrity that you get from the cement treated base, but that's not the kind of structural integrity that would resist a slide. If it continues to creep, we'll notice it.
Okay.
But it's going to be a slow goer, and that's without it would have taken a significant expense to try to do the geotechnical analysis on that, and we just saw it as more of a kind of a slow creeper as opposed to something major. So.
Okay, so this is my last slide, promise. This is just a quick snapshot of what we're planning to do in 2013. And sorry for the scale of this a little bit, but by the colors you can at least get an idea of what streets we're looking at. The red streets are the ones that we're planning to do in 2013. The green highlighted ones are ones that we kind of have in reserve in case funding is available and or appears somehow, or we get great prices on bids, then we can add in a few of those extra streets. So I won't go through the whole list, but basically this is directly from the pavement maintenance plan, and we're going to continue to look at these and scrutinize these and adjust the locations as needed depending on what we actually see in the field when we go out there and look at them.
One exception might be the green line, more close. It's Claremont, so it's kind of the line that does a little snaking through there.
Yep.
That's got a water main in it that we are putting in this year's water main replacement program. So we pulled it out of Murray Smith's contract and we'll likely include it in another contract. So we still plan to do some paving work there once the water line work is complete.
Is that running the entire length of Claremont?
We're not sure what we can really afford. Our water fund, as we've been talking about, is pretty limited. So when we first looked at that, we were pretty sure we couldn't do the whole run. But we're going to see our year-to-date expenditures here real soon and see where our revenues are. We're going to try to get as much of that done as we can.
Well, any questions for Gabriel?
Quick request, and maybe we had them sometime during last year when we saw the pavement maintenance plan schedule, but could we get a electronic copy of this last map, the scheduled ones for this coming year, and the first map that showed us what was done in 2012? Just have them sent, so if we're curious, we can go drive some of those streets.
Yeah, I think we could. I think you can pull those out of there for them, Kelly.
I can get it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's a good idea.
Now, if you could just move the manholes a little bit when you're riding a motorcycle, you're not going around.
It's a slalom course for you.
Well, I want to thank Gabe because I called him, I think Thursday evening, and asked him if he could do this for us. So it wasn't something we had planned in the queue for a long time. And he goes, I think I can get that done. So he did it pretty quick and didn't want to distract him too much from the 2013 work, but I appreciate you putting it together for us.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, good job on such short notice.
No, it's a pleasure to come and take a little bit of pride in the work that we're able to do for the city.
Well, it's helpful to
Yeah.
us to understand how things are done and why they're done, and
But
it's good.
I seen the people at Barclay coming out there using both those lanes like they're supposed to, so they
good.
must be working.
Good.
Yeah, we've gotten some compliments on that one, so the neighborhood's pretty happy about having that. And that really is another thing to remind the viewing audience, I guess, is that that idea and the push for that came from the neighborhood, and we tried to listen to that and see if there was a solution, and found that there was, and found the money to cover that.
It's a very simple solution too. The cost was not extremely significant, which is why it was able to be included
Yeah.
in the project. But it's obviously going to make a big impact for that neighborhood.
Very good.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Oregon Passenger Rail Open House.
No, you're good.
Was anybody able to attend that? I didn't see any of you there, but I
I saw you were busy.
Okay. And with my eyesight, it's hard for me to see you. So, well, as you know, the ODOT is doing an open house series, a study survey that they're taking, and what they're considering is whether or not to realign the rail service. And so they're wanting input they're trying to get the high frequency between Eugene and Portland. They're trying to improve service quickness of the service, and so they're looking at this. But they're doing a very slow and careful study on that and asking for a lot of input. So the open house was part of that. They've gotten kind of phase 1 done, and now they're moving to phase 2. But we wanted to be there. I wanted to be there today and to talk to them about the project that First City Cycles will be presenting to the Urban Renewal Commission tomorrow night, and that's the what we're calling the First City Central Bicycle Bistro and Marketplace. It'll be at the train depot. Well, the obvious, I'm trying to ease into this. I did a kind of a preliminary concept plan to the Urban Renewal Commission several weeks ago, and then tomorrow night will be a more developed concept plan. And then if the commission gives a green light, then we'll proceed with a formal business plan. Without getting into detail about the concept and what we're trying to do there, basically it's for tourism, to promote tourism in general and cyclotourism specifically. But it was important to get an understanding from. I talked to Bob Melbo, who is he's the state rail planner, and I just asked him, we don't want to launch, if we're approved by the Urban Renewal Commission, we don't want to put the dollars into developing this and then have, a year down the road, a realignment. But I was encouraged. He said, even with, if there is a decision made, it'll probably be, 10 years at minimum before any realignment would be done. And he said that the infrastructure on the Milwaukee area and the other possible stations would be significant and would require federal dollars. And so anyway, I was encouraged by that. At least Oregon City will continue, and a couple of others came over and started talking to him also about the tourism, the possibility of a development at the Rossman landfill, the Willamette Falls opening up, and all the work that's been done in Main Street. That there may be reason to enough incentive in the next several years for that service to remain in Oregon City, and perhaps I said, well, how about the Coast Starlight stopping? That's the one that goes from LA to Vancouver, BC, and he says, well, if you have all those incentives, there may be reason to, but of course you can't promise anything. But anyway, I was encouraged. So. Bob, did you have any thoughts?
No, they just a lot of people, big turnout, well organized.
Mm-hmm. Well, the rail service between Eugene and now Vancouver is I believe the 3 trains, the Talgo trains, which have a fixed, they're a fixed size, and those are that Washington owns, I believe, 3, and I believe it's the federal government owns 2. I think it's 2, and then Oregon is now in the process of purchasing, or has purchased, I'm not sure which, has purchased, I believe, 2. And so that gives us a little bit more at the table in terms of developing policies and rail service routes and schedules and so forth. So that's about it on the trains. Okay. Well, 2005 to 2018 STIP applications. Sorry,
2015.
2015.
So did you all
Oh, whoops, sorry.
Thank you for the
did you all
correction.
study the list of projects that have been applied for?
Are you going to give us a
Through
test?
Yeah, I'm going to give you a test.
We looked at the maps.
Well, there's a couple things that are in this package. One is the submissions that have come from all the agencies for this limited source of funds. And then there's our 2 applications in here. So we applied for funding for Main Street from 10th to 15th. So another boulevard kind of enhancement project similar to what we did in the first 5 blocks of Main Street. And then Malala Avenue is included in here from Beaver Creek Road to Highway 213, and the intent wasn't to replace the sections that have been redone along that boulevard, but to fill the gaps and to enhance that boulevard to the degree that would make some sense. So what I understand is that about $300 million worth of projects have been applied for, and there's $66 million available for giveaway. So we had a meeting. There's a lot of transportation groups, but Clackamas County C4 group, which consists of so the C4 TAC is coordinated through Clackamas County. It involves all the cities within the county and the county itself, and a couple other players are involved in that. And it's made up mostly of mayors and commissioners. But usually, depending on the topic, there's staff there as well. So I went to that last week, and they asked us to bring information to share with the committee. They had also invited a portion of the selection committee, and it's the portion that's represents Region 1 in the state, and it was the 4 Clackamas County representatives that they help. They're going to help the whole region make decisions, but there are representation as well. So they asked staff, and the Betty Mum is actually the commissioner who sits on that committee. So she was there, and I was there, and we talked a little bit about our projects. And they gave us about 3 minutes to get through both of our projects and talk to them about why we thought they were important projects. And they asked us for a priority. I mean, right off the bat, they realized that you're gonna have to cut some things. So they've been asked to get to a 150% list. And so at that meeting, we weren't really prepared to talk about our cut list. I mean, both of those projects feel pretty important to us. I would say that Main Street's got more history to it in terms of grant applications. So after thinking through that a little bit, listening to what other agencies had to say, we sent our priority, which was that if we had to choose a preference, it would be for this round of funding, it would be Main Street. We'll continue to pursue, there's funding through Metro as well, so we'll continue to pursue that for both projects. But that's where our STIP projects are at. And I thought I'd mention to you the 4 county contacts. This is on their website as well, so you're welcome to go there to take a look at that. But for Clackamas County, Paul Savas, County Commissioner Paul Savas is one. Donna Jordan from Lake Oswego, she's a city councilor for the city of Lake Oswego. Joe Halloran, who's the Director of Transportation/Traffic for Fred Meyer. And then Stephen Lashbrook, who's with Wilsonville Transit. He's our transit director. So it was good to talk to them. It was very rushed, and my hope is that they spend more time looking at the applications as opposed to that 3-minute conversation that we had, or 3-minute presentation that we had. And they also asked us for more, like a letter describing why we thought our project had more merit than some of the others. Or maybe not comparing them that way, but just why we thought our project was important. So, John?
To be competitive, do they have a minimum local contribution? And if you increase that local contribution, does it improve your chances of funding? Do you know about their process?
Well, the minimum is 10.27%. So a lot of these include 10.27% as a match. I believe that's true for Main Street as well. For Malala, we increased that match. And the other thing that they said that I was kind of questioning was, actually, to answer your question, they didn't specifically say that would be a leading factor for them, but my guess is it has some influence. And the other thing that they indicated was that for instance, if we were having to choose projects and sacrifice one project for another, the idea of contributing those funds from one project to another, that they weren't, at this time anyway, allowing for those kind of adjustments to be made to the application package, nor were they allowing for us to further phase in, for instance, if we want to take Malala and phase it in a couple of phases instead of just the one big phase. So, and that probably makes sense, because we'll pursue other grant opportunities for these projects, and I'd hate to find out they had a match as well, and we went and committed that to this round of funding. So, and I think
I happen to be. I did some research on Oregon City demographics and found out that out of the top 20 cities based on 2011 census, that Oregon City is the second of the top 20 cities in Oregon. Oregon City is the second fastest growing city behind Beaverton, and I was really surprised by that. And I was wondering, I didn't see any kind of demographic in those STIP applications. Do you think that would kind of weigh in a little bit, that cities that are growing faster, have more use? What that would weigh into it?
Yeah, I guess. There's lots of things that aren't in those applications that you kind of wonder about. For one, we're a county seat. Does that make a difference? There's nothing in the application that kind of indicates that we do. Yeah, demographics. What's our growth potential versus another? I think they're looking more at how well do these projects blend with other projects that are either in the works or recently completed. How much will these projects help keep the state system moving more freely? And I don't quite understand how we can, part of me was wondering, well, what should I tell the committee in terms of how they could make a difference in this one? And I'm not sure, other than maybe if you know any of those county contacts, reaching out to them and just, buy them a cup of coffee or something and saying, hey, this project's important to us and here's why. I know they're under a pretty tight timeline, and, they're trying to look at all the region's needs. And
well, it seemed to me too that they asked you to cut, prioritize or cut back, where we only had 2 projects, and some of these other places had 4 or 5 or 6 projects. It would be much easier for them to cut back on their wishes than Oregon City would be.
Yeah, we had 2 projects, but they added. Malala was a pretty big project. That was over $4 million that we were asking for there. So I don't know if it's the number of projects or the dollar amounts. It doesn't feel like there's going to be a lot of science applied. It's more just kind of looking at the projects as a whole. And, does it make sense to put a bike lane out on Beaver Creek Road, which is one of the county projects, out past Henrici, versus doing a Malala Avenue project? To me it doesn't, but maybe to them it would.
John, would it be helpful for the Transportation Advisory Committee to draft a letter and send it to, say, Paul Savas?
I think it might. They haven't asked for that, but I don't see how it would hurt. And we could actually copy all of them.
Okay. Yeah. So that doesn't require a motion. Are we all in agreement on that?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, John, if you'll bullet, maybe make some bullet points that we can cover, we'll put a letter together.
Okay. Yeah, we may choose to use the letter that we sent. Yeah, we'll do that.
Okay. We can get that done by Friday, maybe?
Eric on that, maybe, because he's got that as a letter already drafted, so we'll try to get that
Yeah.
together. And then
Fast track it. And
Blaine, you can sign it
Yep.
on behalf of the whole committee. The other thing is, it looks like March 15th of 2013 is when they actually hope to have at least got a pretty good look at what their 150% list would look like with regard to recommendations. That takes some vetting after that, but we'll know what that looks like around that time. That's all I had on that one.
All right. Looks like Kathy, you're up. Any questions on what John presented? No? Okay. Kathy, looks like you're up on the Holcomb Boulevard bike and pedestrian improvements.
I don't remember why my name was on there.
I wondered too, but yeah,
Hey,
I figured you knew what you're.
I was kind of liking the idea.
Yeah.
John put it there.
What,
as you
John-
can see, the application for Holcomb, a copy of it's in the packet.
John, you've done a lot of work on that, haven't you?
Yes, I guess some of the other neighborhood people have been more directly involved in the grant, but I've been involved in meeting with the school and talking to property owners along the route. And there's a petition in here, a neighborhood petition in support of the Holcomb pedestrian improvements. So Nick and I walked the neighborhood and were able to get those signatures.
Nick Dirkman.
Yes.
Yep.
And everybody seemed to be in favor of it.
I think
Well,
Bob
what-
LaSalle may have helped a little, or you either helped or you I guess you were aware of it as a neighborhood member.
Well, yeah, but I let those guys do the work.
Maybe one thing I wanted to mention was, and I'm sure I sent it out, but I want to encourage everybody to go online and do the survey. There's an online survey. If you go to the city's website, it's on the main page, www.orcity.org. And I don't know how much weight it provides, but the review committee is asking people to fill out this little survey, and it really truly took 4 to 5 minutes. It's really quick.
And that's not just for Park Place residents?
No,
Okay.
it's for anybody.
Okay.
They do ask you if you are a resident of the area
I think
or
so.
not.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can still provide comments on any application, so
Okay.
statewide. So, and pass on the word.
Yeah.
We have until January 31st.
So what's the next step in that project?
Well, I think we're waiting we made the first round of project cuts, and now we're waiting for the formal, more detailed round of funding. And I don't know when that particular funding announcement will be made.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not recalling either when we're going to hear on this one. I didn't print that schedule, and I don't think I know that.
And how much is the cut version? How much are we asking for there in ballpark numbers?
Say that again.
How much are we asking for in ballpark numbers?
You're asking for
500,000, I think, is what the grant was
Yeah.
allowed for. So we were. I think the project was 700,
709.
709, yes.
and so I think the limit was 500,000. So we elected to, match with the difference. And the only other piece that I think would be worth mentioning on this project is originally there was the intent of this one was to try and get Pedway all the way up to Winston Drive. Right now there's a sidewalk that comes down to Oak Tree Terrace, or close to Oak Tree Terrace. It's maybe about 200 feet from Oak Tree Terrace and just dead ends there, and it's only on the east side of Holcomb. So we looked at this project and did several scenarios and looked at pricing components on this. And since it was only a $500,000 grant, we scaled this back to get a project that we thought we could afford to build. So it's the original application package included sidewalk all the way to Winston, but as we looked hard at the numbers, we realized we're well over $500,000 even for a scaled back project. So, and you can see that you can see that in the mapping that we've provided.
I think the third map in the packet shows the revised project.
Yeah, the Eastern Project Area Plan kind of shows a sidewalk extension by future development. That's one option. I know the neighbors have talked about possibly building a soft path using volunteers. That's another idea. So it's a good project. Hopefully we'll be successful with that.
Yeah. So the 500,000, if that's approved, granted, then there would be another 500,000 match, or
$209,000 match.
okay, all right. So, all right.
Based on our estimate. We may have a little contingency built into that. But
All right. Good clarification. But I mean, that is to me, that'll be exciting to see everything, connected there, and especially for the kids, the school kids, and
yeah,
that's a good work.
I'm looking
the
forward to it because
principal told us they could eliminate two buses if that's completed. So that's a savings right there in just school bus costs.
Yeah, it's good. And John, thanks for all your work on that.
Thanks. You're welcome.
Okay, so McLaughlin Boulevard Enhancement Project. Bob and Fred, you're working on that together?
Do you have anything you want to talk about for the?
I apologize for being late.
Oh.
I'm impressed with the enthusiasm and the expertise that these people approach this project with, and there's a real challenge down there. I really do. There's a lot of activity going on right now, and what they're going to do to put a signature on that to do what they're set out to do is going to be interesting. But these young PSU students, I think, are going to knock our hats off. Really, they just might come up with something that will do just that.
Pretty unique.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. They've got an open house type thing at one of their halls at Portland State Saturday. I don't know if it's this Saturday.
I've got
It
the
is this
details
Saturday.
if you want.
Yeah.
Or do you guys?
Yeah, it's this Saturday at 2 o'clock, 2 to 5, at the Portland State University Shattuck Hall, room 210. And then the next thing after that is January 29th here at 6 p.m. They're going to present their designs to the community.
Maybe here in Oregon City?
No, here, right here.
Okay, good.
I would like to see them somehow emphasize, especially, of course, obviously at night, some sort of a lighting program, which I think would be unique. And because I think to put signage or furniture in there that there's just not a lot of room down there to do a lot of stuff, but if you had some sort of lighting in there that could catch the eye of the commuter, that might be kind of unique in a sense and open itself to a lot of different variations and not be overwhelm the community with having to maintain a lot of stuff, and what impresses me down there is just the activity coming in and out of the Oregon City Shopping Center and going down there by the boat ramps and Clackamas Park and all that. There's so much going on down there that if you get something that just overachieves what you're trying to do, it just might be counterproductive. But I don't know. I just threw that out for a suggestion. It might not go anywhere. So, but anyway, I was very impressed with their comments.
Well, and there are constraints to overbuilding, obviously.
Yeah.
Dollars,
Yeah, right.
big factor.
That's why I hit on this lighting thing. If you get a series of lights doing things that don't overwhelm, that would seem to be something you could achieve on the cheap. But
Strobe lights are out of the question.
yeah, right. 20th Century Fox.
Welcome to Oregon City.
Right.
A new record for Oregon City traffic accidents.
Yeah.
One of the concepts that they're looking at is having the bicycles separate, totally separate from the traffic, which is what everybody pretty much thinks should be done, instead of having the bike lane right there on the side. So I'm hoping that goes through. It's cost more, I'm sure, but
What's the traffic limit along McLaughlin in that area? Is it 35 or
Speed
40?
limit? I think it's 40.
40. Yeah, I know I'd be intimidated if I were open to anytime you get traffic moving faster.
So
40 miles an
I
hour.
think I
gets
should
scary.
speak to that a little bit, just because there's another work group meeting coming up where we've asked ODOT, and I'm going to draw a blank on the date.
it's the next POG meeting.
Yeah, do you know the date of the next
That is February 4th.
Okay, so February 4th, ODOT will be here. We asked them to come because, they have regulatory authority over what we do from curb to curb. And they had some real apprehension about, they didn't have a problem with the separated sidewalk and separated bikeway. What they had a problem was the fact that in order for us to fit that in without building gigantic walls, if you've ever walked that section, the slopes off the backside of the sidewalk are real steep. So any wider we get with that requires, a thickened sidewalk edge or a retaining wall. And so in order to make that kind of a concept work where you would have basically a curb, more of a furnishing zone where you might have trees and, street lights, those kind of things, and a sidewalk and then a bike lane. So really kind of putting your bike lane out closer to the edge of the right-of-way than what is traditionally the case. In order to do that, we asked ODOT to look at narrow lane configurations, shy distance from the median, minimizing that to a foot, and then minimizing the shoulder to maybe 2 feet. And then that gave us enough room to build this kind of off-street section, if you will. And ODOT looked pretty hard at that and have let us know that no, that's not what they're willing to accept. They wanted a 5-foot shoulder. In order to get a 5-foot shoulder, we would really have to push our section out and build, some significant retaining walls, which we really didn't have the funding for. So, and they've got justification for that, and they've got standards that they typically require. They speak to the trucking community as well as the 35,000 vehicles a day that use that piece of roadway. And so, I think initially we were kind of frustrated with that, and I know the project design team is really kind of frustrated with that. But I promised the state guys that we wouldn't be too hard on them because they're trying to balance traffic with biking and pedestrian safety. And but we did ask them to come and speak before the group and kind of share their thoughts on that as well. So we're moving forward with the 30% design concept as though it'll include more of a traditional bike lane right next to the travel lane and between the travel lane and the curb. That's kind of what we're looking at now. It'd be a 6-foot bike lane, so it'd be a nice sized bike lane. But so the design team's trying to work through those changes and bring back a 30% project that would hopefully be something the community's still pretty happy with. And then, so the thing that was mentioned on January 19th says you're invited to attend the PSU Architecture Design Workshop Kickoff. Portland State University architectural students workshop to kick off their design concepts for the North northern gateway into Oregon City along McLaughlin Boulevard as part of the city's McLaughlin Boulevard Enhancement Phase 2 project. So it's January 19th from 2 to 5, which is what you said. And it's at Portland State University campus at the Shattuck Hall, room 210, which is also what you said, but I just want to repeat that for you. And so it's a bit of a design charrette. As far as I know, they're working on, not necessarily what the section's going to look like, but design concepts for, the entryway features, right?
Are either of you planning to attend?
Yeah, I was planning to.
Okay.
I might drop by, yeah.
All right. Someone sent me a picture on email, and it was a picture of a boulevard, trees, and everything, and there were bicycles had this much, and there was a little lane over here. It had a stencil of a car in it. It was cute. So I have to send that to these guys.
Yeah, that's what we need.
Yeah, I think they'd like getting that.
Okay. Well, McLaughlin Boulevard, let's see, we're on South End Concept. Bob, you have any updates for us there?
Well, we haven't had any meetings lately. The last one was our open house, which was very well attended. We were really surprised. And I had several people ask me, they had concerns about individual parts of their neighborhood, like the location of a stop sign and speed zones and various sundry questions. And I tried to tell those people to come to the TAC or call John. If they have concerns, that's what we're here for. And 2 or 3 of them said, well, gee, at least somebody will listen to us, so we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah.
But you get involved in those situations, and it's interesting to listen to what a lot of people have to say. So,
What's your overall sense of are people more positive about the concepts, or?
yes, they're much more positive than I thought they would be. But so far, it's just a fact-finding
Okay.
process. We've got all the facts together. Now it looks like we'll start moving forward on some planning issues. But I feel good about the people that are involved in it. I think it's a really cohesive group. How do you feel, John?
Right. I think people start these processes and they're good people, good intentions, and then things kind of go sideways a little bit. So I think that we're trying to do the best we can to make sure that doesn't happen. Pete Walters, the planner, who's charged with getting that project or that plan through the public involvement process and adoption process. And I don't know if you folks are on the email list for, they've been
Yes.
sending these requests to fill out the online. It's kind of cool. It's an interactive online tool to, point where you think housing should go or where you think various kinds of land uses should be. And so I encourage you to check that out. I did because I live out there, so I took my turn at stab at that. But yeah, it's a little hard because they're working with objectives and goals and what's important, and as opposed to me, I need to see pictures and I need somebody to draw me a vision of what would be really cool out there, and then I get excited about that. And sometimes these concept plans they might give you samples of what that would that look like and where you might apply that to certain places, but they can't really just design it and show you what the building facades might look like or what the road sections might look like. Maybe that'll come later. But right now it's information gathering and trying to get people just interested without, getting frustrated with the process.
Well, I think, too, that the general public needs to realize that it truly is not an action plan, but a concept.
Yeah.
And if we can keep the public down there feeling that way about it, I think they'll be more positive also.
The planning commission met last night, and it always comes about. There were several people in the audience that said, well, we didn't know. How come we weren't notified? And, you know, it just repeats itself over and over and over again. Here we sit, you know, and here I sit an hour late, you know. And, but how to get people involved in a reasonable way, in a realistic way, because there's an elephant sitting in this room and we don't even see it. It's called the marketplace. Land use planning is driven by the marketplace. And that marketplace is going to change every so often. And we're right in the middle of a, I don't know if you call it a catastrophe or what. We'll survive because we're Americans. You know, we'll find a way out of this. But these concept plans are fine, but you've got to understand that there's money out there that's looking for a place to light.
Right.
And it's going to drive the economy. And you've got to deal with it. There's just no way that you can't ignore it. You know, somebody's going to walk through that door and they're going to have a plan. It's like $100 million here, Blue Heron, and I want to develop it. And it just came out of the blue. You know, nobody gave you 6 months' notice. Prepared, we're on our way, that kind of stuff. And you mix that with citizen participation, and if citizens say, "That's not what we had in mind," you know, that kind of stuff. So the reality of this traffic planning and the reality of land use planning has to be understood by both sides. You know, not only the applicant, but you know, these people live here, and they don't want to see their community, you know,
Right.
changed to the point where they don't want to live here anymore.
Right,
that kind of
right.
stuff. So we got to be aware of that. That's all
Yeah.
I'm saying.
Yep, well, you're absolutely right. And if those that are doing the developing are doing their homework, they'll be able to, you know, essentially, you know, win their customers over, if you will. So,
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, there's homework to be done on both sides.
right. But Oregon City, is, at least the last several years, has been tough on such things as annexations, and it's been hard to get the land to develop, you know, so that's another topic. Anything else on the south end concept plan? Sounds like things are moving along. All right. Well, then, John, you have the South End Road speed zone application.
Yeah, not a speed bump. This
Speed
is a
zone.
speed zone application, and there's not much to. There's a couple of emails in here. Basically, we're still moving down that path. Sounds like we're going to get a speed zone adjustment. We're just waiting for ODOT to finish its report. They've already looked at the site and found a couple of flaws, and looks like maybe we had some signage problems out there, so they're going to authorize the reduced speed zone to 35, and I think we're just waiting on the final report.
Okay.
And then same thing with street lighting on the intersection of Redland Road and Anchor Way. What we've heard is in order to put a light at Anchor Way and Redland Road, requires a transformer. PG&E's quoted us $15,000 for that transformer and to get the power there that you need. But we asked them about Anchor Way as well as just the intersection there. So as you drive up Anchor Way, that's probably the darkest street in town. So there's, I think, 3 lights that can happen down Anchor Way. We've asked them to proceed with that work. And what we thought we'd do is, maybe it's wishful thinking, but just kind of see if that makes any difference at Redland Road. It's going to be on the other side of the bridge, but
The reason why I brought it up because is when you come down there at night when it's foggy, you can't tell if there's a bicycle in when you make that turn on that intersection or a pedestrian in there because you're coming around that corner and cars hitting you with the lights and you're trying to make the turn. It's like, wow, it's dark.
Yeah.
Because you just drove out of the light up at Holcomb the time you got down there, or Abernathy, whatever you want to call that.
yeah.
And you get there and it's just, your eyes are not adjusted.
Yeah. No, I agree. So we'll have to look at that further. So let's just wait and see, Steve. Let's see how we go with the lights coming down Anchor Way and see if that makes a big difference.
Get the county to pay for it because it's on Redland Road.
It is on Redland Road. That's another piece. So let's see, item I is the trolley shuttle service, and I don't want to go too deep here, other than to say, City Commission had its goal setting session over the weekend, and talked a little bit about trolley shuttles and some of the inefficiencies with regard to our trolley program and cost of doing that. And they've asked us to look harder at a shuttle service that would help with the parking situation at the end of the Oregon Trail and Amtrak and the Main Street parking lot and the county courthouse. So still recognizing the need to help solve parking problems downtown, and they think shuttle service can do that. They're just not sure those trolleys are the right way to do it. So they've asked us to look pretty hard at that. And so that's something staff's going to pursue. And the other good news that we hear from the police department is that the downtown parking study and the new circulation seems to be working out real well. And there's parking available lots of times. And I won't say 100% of the time, but businesses, the complaints that we've heard from businesses have dropped off significantly since the bridge reopened, Main Street reopened. Things are kind of, people are figuring it out down there. So I don't know if you guys go downtown much to try and find parking, but I always find parking when I go down there.
I just get caught when you change that one street from one way to the other way. I used to.
Yeah, 6th Street is probably the one you're talking about. That seems to be the one that's most different. 7th is a little different too, but people got that figured out.
There was a question different downtown, but coming down the Arch Bridge from West Lynn, and one of you commented about people turning left onto Main Street, and that being a little bit of a problem. And I guess there was a sign that was. I remember someone saying that the sign was going to be put up, no left turn, and I don't know if that ever happened.
Yeah, we put up a sign. It's been somewhat well received, but not, people still would like to see a sign placed on the mast arm. Mm-hmm. There's some problems associated with that. One, ODOT isn't willing to do that. So we had to put it up on the signal pole off to your left. And it's, we've got bigger no left turn signs, but it's really just the arrow with the cross through it. And, the city wasn't necessarily opposed to seeing that left turn movement happen. ODOT's been opposed to that because it causes a backup onto the bridge, but it's a movement that you can make safely. So we've signed it. I think police to some extent are trying to enforce that, but they also recognize that it's not as visible as maybe something right up here might be.
Easy to miss.
The other thing is we've talked to ODOT about adding a legend on the pavement as you come off the bridge so that it denotes the straight and the right. So we're trying to encourage people to go the right way as opposed to saying, don't do this, and sending, I don't know, I think we've talked about this, but I don't know if you remember that intersection before the project. It was pretty much littered with don't do this, don't do that, don't come here. It kind of sent that message.
Negative,
and so
yeah.
It's always been our contention that it'd be nice to kind of keep that litter free and still hopefully have a safe intersection.
The only other comment, did you receive the letter that Paul Edgar had sent about, I believe it was lighting along Fifth Avenue, or?
I don't think I did.
Yeah, I don't know. But, well, okay.
Oh, Fifth Avenue.
Right.
If not 5th Street, 5th Avenue up where, yeah. Did I get an email from him, or did he just tell me about that? But he asked for some light service requests because there were some lights out. I don't think he was asking for additional lights. He was just asking. And as far as I know, we submitted the light service request to PGE.
Forwarded to the right people. Okay.
Yeah.
I saw that PGE is going to be changing some of the street lights out to LED.
That's right. That's right. They are going to do that, and they've been leaning on me pretty heavy to. There's a couple options there on how we could go forward with that because the city has street lights. There's street lights in the city that PGE owns and maintains. There's street lights in the city that the city owns and PGE maintains, and then there's street lights that the city owns and we maintain. And there's different prices for each of those. And so PGE, on their lights that they own, they're planning to replace all of those. And there's, so we'll pay a reduced charge for all of those, the theory being that it'll consume less power, and so the rates will go down for those. There's that same option exists for what we call Schedule B, which is the ones that we own and they maintain, but the pricing for that's there's some incentive to do it now, but over the long term it will be a higher price. So we haven't kind of given them direction on what we want to do with that yet, but
We
yeah,
were the first cities in the state to get that.
they're talking about several cities. I'm not sure if
Yeah,
we're
but
going to
we're
be the
number
first
one.
ones.
Number one. We're number one in just about everything.
First whiskey sale.
Hey, John, in regard to parking downtown, how receptive is TriMet to changing their parking spots for their buses? The reason I ask that is Friday mornings I join a group for coffee, and I go south on Main Street, and right there at the transit center, there is almost always a bus parked right next to, or I guess you'd call behind, a crosswalk. In other words, the crosswalk, he's sitting there parked on the curb, and the crosswalk crosses in front of the bus. And it just gives me a cringing feeling every time I approach that, because a pedestrian coming across that crosswalk wouldn't see the car, and the car couldn't see them until they were hit. It's a very dangerous situation. And I wish I could tell you what the cross street is there, but I can't.
Is it Main and 11th? Because that's where the transit center is. Is that
Well,
where-
that would be,
Right there at the transit center.
yeah, right at the transit center. yeah.
Well, it used to be all painted and signs in there says traffic's not supposed to, regular traffic's not supposed to come through there, just buses. So I don't, when they reconfigured that and changed it, they didn't put those back up there. So I don't know if that
Well, this
means
is right on Main Street.
Yeah. Buses are on Main Street in front of the.
The bus is parked right on Main Street.
in front of the shack.
And I think
No.
it's just beyond the shacks a little bit.
Up near the
Auto parts.
Clackamas Auto Repair.
Oh, that's where the third. You know, what I'm talking about where the bus. Oh, okay.
And you know, if you're driving there,
I don't think there's.
you're
a
driving
crosswalk.
past that bus, and the crosswalk is right directly in front of the bus.
Is it a striped crosswalk? I'm trying to
Yes, it is.
You're also making a turn, a little bit of a turn right there, so you're
Yeah,
not
a
really
little bit.
looking.
Yeah, it's scary.
I'm not picturing that.
Do you guys have the screen if you've got a presentation?
No, my screen is all messed up. I goofed it up.
Just toggle that switch the other way. The other way. To the right. Yeah, there you go.
Well,
Okay.
we can definitely talk about this. I think what I've heard from TriMet is, for one, the usage of that transit center is, with regard to bus transitioning, is pretty high, and there's very little parking for buses in that vicinity. So
Well,
I'm going to keep zooming in here, so hold tight for just a minute.
Oh, you're on the other one. Okay, go back. Yeah. Okay.
If I can't get the photos on. So, are you talking right here?
Yep.
Right.
I don't know that there's
Bob,
any crosswalk.
Bob, is this where you're talking the buses parked where my arrow
Well,
is?
I'm trying to orient
You
myself
can't see that.
Down by Kentucky Fried Chicken.
there. I
Lots of
believe
Kentucky Fried-
He doesn't see
that's
this.
right.
I don't think
Fried
you can
chicken.
see the mouse.
You guys see
Can
my
the
arrow
mouse?
on your screen?
Yeah,
Okay.
out there. And this is Clackamas Auto Repair.
Well, let's see here.
Offices. Usually
There's no
Kentucky
crosswalk.
Fried
It seems like it's further north when it's parked. But I wish I could see where that.
So you're talking about in front of Kentucky Fried Chicken.
No, I think they're.
No, it's someplace between 11th Street and that building number 112. It's right in there.
Yeah. I've seen it.
112.
I think that's a bus right there.
Yeah,
Park
it is
right
the
there.
bus right
That's
there.
where they park.
Yeah, they park right along here and right along here, so they'll stack two deep in here sometimes.
exactly.
And they also park, along the transit center.
Well, it doesn't show the crosswalk in front of that bus.
There shouldn't be we don't have a striped crosswalk there.
I've seen people. come
Well,
out.
it
It's
is
an alley.
it is a striped crosswalk that the bus parks right in front of
I
it.
think he's talking about in front of Kentucky Fried. It's just by the parking lot, right? Yeah, right there. I think that's what he's talking about.
And I'm trying to remember if that's not a driveway approach there, is it? Tells you how often I go to Kentucky Fried Chicken. Not very, but
No, this driveway is on
I don't
the-
think they can get out
It's
there.
north, it's north, the approach.
I think they can park maybe right here as well. And that would be a blind spot for anyone crossing that particular
They
crossing.
come down the bus route, so they don't come from the other direction, John.
You don't think they come down Main Street?
The buses that are parked there are facing south,
Yeah, that's what I would think. They'd be coming south on Main Street, right?
but they're
Park
but
right
they're
in front.
usually just sitting there for a short period of time. They're just kind of waiting to pull into maybe where the in front of the auto part, by the auto parts over there when there's no room to park there or something. So
I'll get a better description for you, John, next time I see you, because it is definitely a really bad, hazardous situation, and just because the buses don't have a lot of places to park is not, in my opinion, worth a pedestrian's life.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I think TriMet would too. Just so you know, the grant proposal that we're asking for is includes some funding for property purchase, and with the idea that there might be some place that we could acquire that would be available for some bus transitional parking, not long term, but just bottom line is we see this station gaining in usage as we continue to grow, so they need more places to put buses.
Need to move Kentucky Fried Chicken a little bit north to that empty slot and make that a bus parking.
You need a grant
And
for
they've got
that.
better access to the chicken over there.
There you go.
I didn't mean to disrupt everything, but
Good point, though.
it's been bothering me for some time.
There's another place that Oregon City Schools up at Jackson's campus, that buses park right where there's a fire hydrant, and there's two crosswalks on each side,
Oh,
and they come out of there and you don't see them come snipping out, if you come through there.
yeah, wow.
All right.
They're not supposed to park there, but they do anyway.
you talking
So-
school buses or TriMet buses?
School buses.
Oh, okay.
Are there any other items that need to be covered? That looks like that's it for the agenda, the written agenda. Are there any other items?
Next, the second page, 6B, 6C, 6B.
I wondered if those were, John, weren't those referenced to the items? Those are attachments, right?
Yeah, Kathy's actually put together staff reports that kind of cover these, but if we need to talk through them more, we can. This one here is just regarding that floodplain and how do we get out, how to Park Place residents get out of the neighborhood in a flood. So thought maybe we
That was
would
another one I brought up.
include those in your.
Those were letters that were written in response to concerns that people had about what would happen if there was a flood and it filled up.
Somebody brought it up here.
I know one that brought
And,
it up. I know one that brought it up because
So Alita replied, and
Yeah. So you've got it in writing, but I just kind of wanted to go through it a little bit because it may not be clear from the written response. So there's really a couple ways out of the neighborhood: Holcomb Boulevard and Clackamas River Drive. here in a minute. Although you guys have it on your screen, so.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
We're being video recorded, so.
Okay.
Well, he can.
I made a mistake
He can
anyway,
pull
so.
the computer up in there.
Oh, we can?
Yeah.
All right, so out of Park Place, there's really a couple ways down the hill, Holcomb Boulevard and Clackamas River Drive. So if you're trying to get onto Highway 213 and want to go north so that you could get to Highway 205, that's going to require you to, in this kind of, so what's shown on the map here is the streets and kind of the neighborhood, but the blue represents flood inundation. So I think part of the question was does the jug handles, the new Washington Street alignment, is it now in or out of the floodplain? And if it's in the floodplain, that means it could flood and then be a block point, and that's true. It will continue to be that way. The low point in New Washington under the bridge there is likely to be inundated with floodwaters. So, but the roundabout and Clackamas River Drive is out of the floodplain. So
But you can go up the hill, but you can't go. You
can
can go
go-
down the hill, but you can't.
you can go up. So if you're coming from Park Place, you can go up Clackamas River Drive past Stein Oil and turn right
Yeah.
onto 205 or onto 213. Now,
But Holcomb is-
Holcomb, you get down to Holcomb, and we've seen floodwaters in Holcomb Abernathy intersection before. So that's another route that no longer would exist in the right flood situation. So you wouldn't be able to get out that way either. So that leaves Park Place with the option of getting onto 205 and going around, or going across 205 and making essentially a U-turn in the park or somewhere on Washington Street and going back south on 213. The only other options are to take Clackamas River Drive to Carver, or I think it's Bailey Road, or remember the I
Yeah,
had, it,
you're
I had
right.
it up here.
Keep going.
You've got to go out a ways on Holcomb to get. That's
Bradley.
Bradley.
Bradley. There we go.
Can't you get to it by going up the expressway to Beaver Creek and then going down, was it Maple Lane or whatever it is in that area?
Maple Lane will take you through there.
They have to
That
go.
low spot
They'd
too.
have to get on. They could get on it down there by Home Depot. But they'll have to come all the way up.
The problem is
Top of the hill.
Park
Yeah,
Place.
Exactly.
Yeah, Park
Beverly
Place.
Hill.
Right. Be a little
You
less
can't get
trouble.
from Holcomb to Redland unless you get out, unless you go through that intersection
Yeah.
of Redland and Holcomb. And if it's flooded, you can't get there. So you did really have to take Holcomb Boulevard out to Bradley, and then Bradley onto Maple Lane or Thayer Road, and come back into the backside of Beaver Creek that way. So in a flood, there's not a lot of options for Park Place. That's bottom line, So I don't, good point.
The people up there should know, because there's a lot of new people up there that haven't seen a flood like we've seen.
You would think, but when we had the bridge closure, there was a lot of confusion from, I remember that neighborhood had struggled with some of our public meetings and just kind of how we could, how do we get home if we're going to close the bridge? There's other ways, but lots of times people don't always.
Usually when there's a flood, Clackamas River Drive gets closed because there's a big slide on it.
Yeah, I think, given the configuration of Holcomb and this was a good process for me to go through too, because we would definitely want to make sure we closed Holcomb at the right place. Even though the floodwaters don't happen until you get down to the bottom of the hill, we'd need to close them, at other locations and mark them well ahead of, because there's not a good way to turn around once you get down to the very bottom there. So,
The neighborhood has a newsletter, so you could put together a little map and a few directions in terms of what might transpire should it occur. At least they'd have a heads up. They could just hang onto the map and throw it in the drawer in case ever it comes up.
anything else on this one?
Nope. All right.
I just
Remember what
like
the other one
make
was.
sure everybody knows it's on the books. You know.
The no right turn sign.
Clackamas River
On Highway
Drive.
213. People wanted it lowered.
Yeah, and I didn't get a chance to actually look at this, but I know Alita and Kathy talked about it, and I think
Lita said that we can't.
Can't change it.
ODOT.
ODOT has their
ODOT won't
rules.
allow.
ODOT has,
Yeah,
jurisdiction.
I know. I actually heard from Nancy Crushauer. She was complaining about the fact that that no right turn. She had to wait for quite a while in a queue just to get onto 213 when there was really no traffic on 213. So I'm not sure how smart that signal is. So I have yet to ask Alita about that. But Nancy left me with the impression that her and several other vehicles were stacked up on Clackamas River Drive, wanting to make that right on red, but the signage prohibits that. So
That could be because when they were doing the landscaping, they closed the whole lane on there for a while. And I got backed up to the roundabout.
I guess that she would have noticed that if that had been the case. So
Well, my understanding of the jug handle project was that the goal was to maintain flow, and so like coming up from Home Depot onto 213, I guess I just assumed that there'd be, you'd just be able to flow onto that far right lane onto 213 and meld into traffic, that you wouldn't have a traffic light there. So it's kind of interesting that you're suddenly driving along and all of a sudden you have to stop on going 213 up the expressway. You have to stop because of traffic coming through there. It just seemed like they could feed on into one lane and and then just meld into traffic without
Merge in.
Yeah.
Or at least maybe now they have the flashing arrows for left turns, but you have something like that right, so it cautions them, but because the speed limit's pretty dramatic right through that area.
55.
yeah, I think that's the
55.
problem.
Yes.
That's
They
the
do not
problem.
want people turning right on red
Yeah,
because of the speed.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. But it'd be nice if you had a lane that they could at least turn onto, and then from at Stein Oil there, turn without a traffic light, turn and then merge in. But there's probably not enough room before you get to the bridge to do that.
Yeah.
So.
They're not going to do it now, Blaine.
Nope.
They just spent $22
You just
million on that.
You just triggered a thought in my mind. So okay.
And election of officers.
Oh yeah, that's a big thing. All right.
Maybe before we go into that one, can I just add in a couple of items? Those items before you can do that
Sure.
last item. So I'm going to hand this out. And this is. Since this is being recorded. So figure one is one of a couple of options that we have for dealing with what is really the most problematic intersection in the city, which is 14th and Main.
Yes.
And because of the short distance between Main Street and McLaughlin Boulevard, the queues there back up onto McLaughlin and create significant problems there on McLaughlin Boulevard. And so the state would like to see those that flow move a little better than it does now. Yet it doesn't really make sense to put a signal there. So this plan is something that DKS came up with, and actually I think we're inspired to put together. Maybe through conversations with ODOT, I don't know. It showed up in a draft copy of the TSP more recently here, so it will continue to show up. And the TSP is going to come before you in a draft version fairly soon here. So, but I just wanted to share this with this group. Not really expecting much discussion tonight because it's too complicated in terms of the details. It's small drawing and lots going on there. But the main thought was you could run one-way traffic on 14th headed east and one-way traffic on 15th headed west. And there's some bikeway design that's included in here that there's room available for on-street parking and some bike lane configurations, but they're kind of unique. For instance, bike lane that flows in the opposite direction of some of the traffic. But it does a good job of moving bikes and it does it safely. It's just different. The other thing that has been raised as a concern is if you remember when we closed the bridge for the rapid bridge replacement project on Highway 213, we essentially put traffic in these streets, and we kind of did something similar to this. Not exactly, but we did. Yeah, we made some changes there in just how we were moving traffic. But one thing that we couldn't do was we couldn't put truck traffic on 15th. We had to move it down to 14th because of the train trestle was too low, and there was concern that a taller, higher truck would get stuck under that trestle. I don't think that's a deal killer. I mean, this is kind of a long-range plan, and it's in our TSP, so it's really way more detailed than just about any other streets shown in our transportation system plan. But again, because this is such a problem for McLaughlin Boulevard, DKS put in the extra effort, and it's a valiant effort here. But it does have some complexities to it, so I'm just going to ask you to look at it, think about it, and when the draft TSP comes around for your review, I think this might be a good plan to warrant a fair amount of discussion.
With this plan, I can't tell. Right there at the Trails Inn Saloon, along Main Street, there are stop signs, but not going down 14th. And that's kind of a problem because some people get tagged there, because they think it's a four-way stop.
There's 3 stop signs there.
Right. Yeah. Well, the
Oh, I
one-way
see, yeah.
traffic, there'd still be stop signs on 14th Street, but they'd only be on one leg because they wouldn't be coming through the other way. So
Okay.
they don't. All that.
Oh, I
That'd
see
be
the
2
stop
lanes
signs,
of
yeah.
one-way traffic heading eastbound on 14th. So the conflict points would be reduced.
I still
And
think
John, the reason you couldn't eliminate the stop signs on 14th heading east is because, why can't you just take the stop signs out? So when the people turn off of McLaughlin heading east on 14th, no stop sign there at Main, they just have the other traffic got to sort itself out.
It'll
Yeah.
back up
I don't believe there. Let's see.
if it wasn't
Um,
stop signs in there.
Well, currently there's not a stop sign there.
yeah, I don't think there is a stop sign there. Right?
No, there isn't.
They're adding one,
That would back up traffic on the McLaughlin real quick.
right?
So right now,
No, if the traffic is coming off of McLaughlin, flowing south and turning right on 14th, and heading east on 14th, if you take that stop sign off at 14th and Main, they can just keep going then, wouldn't that?
Right, 'cause it's not there now.
Yeah.
it's not there now.
So,
You want a stop sign.
They are. You're right. They're showing a stop sign there. I'm not quite
Yeah.
sure why.
Well, I can tell you why. Because people coming along Main, going north, they stop, and then they assume that there's a four-way stop, and they start across, and someone comes around that. I've known someone who got T-boned
Been
there.
hit there. Yeah.
But there's not enough room there
To have a stop sign there
stop
now.
sign there, because then it'd be backed up to,
Yes.
to 15th Street.
Well, and
Well,
McLaughlin,
except for now, they've got 2 lanes there, so they may be thinking that
with the 2 lanes.
the 2
along.
lanes is providing enough storage capacity, but
Well, the other thing is I think bikes should all go in the same direction. There should be no bi-directional bikes, because when you pull out on the street, you're on a one-way. In your mind, you're looking at the cars coming at you this way, not people coming at you on the other side. You may run over somebody, because
Yeah.
contraflow bike lane is what that's called.
Contraflow bike lane.
we can just get the bicyclists to look at their direction where they're supposed to be.
Anyway, this wasn't intent to have much discussion on this. I just wanted to present it to you guys early so you could look at it and think about it, and then come prepared with your comments. And the other thing was with regard to the TSP was there's a timeline that's just came out today for the TSP permitting process timeline. So what it looks like is we're going to see we'll actually be submitting a pre-application here real soon to the planning department. So this goes through kind of that planning commission work session process, and then city commission work session, several city commission work sessions through May. So really, starting in January, February, March, April, and May, we're having meetings on this with a variety of groups. And then in May, on the 15th, and June 5th, and June 19th, there'll be actually a hearing, public hearing on that. So I don't know. I need to share that with you in more detail, but I just got it today, and I thought I'd mention it at this meeting. And what I'm a little uncertain about is we're gonna this group. We had that last meeting. We decided we wanted to have a special meeting so that we could have more comment on that. Right, John? Is that
Right, so we could take action as a group and recommend it.
right? So that'll be. I mean, that's going to be available for public view on Friday, from what I understand. So it'll be posted on our website on Friday.
This
Friday.
This Friday?
Yeah. So for those of you that have spent a lot of time looking at that, keep an eye out for that. It's going to be a large document. What I understand is it'll be a PDF, which will make it, and it'll have. You'll be able to click on each chapter, and it'll take you to that chapter or that figure, whatever you want to click on in the table of contents. So I have yet to see it, but rather than getting a 300-page volume 2, which is pretty much everything we've been working through, and just having that one thing that you have to scroll through to get to it, they were going to, basically add in links at each chapter and each figure and each table, so you can go find those. So we'll see.
You're going to make computer geeks out of us yet, aren't you?
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Want to bet?
We're not going to send you a 5-pound document. That's it. Well, I guess there was one other item, and that was this annual reports by boards and committees and commissions to city commissioners. So we have a policy for this. We should probably send that out, Kathy, at our next meeting, or maybe our meeting minutes. But I just brought one copy of it. But the intent is the city commission would like to have each of the active committees at least once a year, providing them with an update on goals and whatever you want to update them on. If that's something that they'd like to get from committee chair or someone on the committee other than staff. We can help, I suppose, but
Is that an in-person presentation, John?
yeah, it'd be showing up for a commission meeting and just telling them what your committee's up to and how it's going. If there's any specific work plans that you want to put in place for the upcoming year, what that would look like.
Will the commission set that date so that
No, I think what would happen would be the committee chair would need to talk to the city recorder and say, or talk to Kathy and say, you know, we'd like to present at the next city commission meeting. Can you get us on the agenda? And assuming that's timely, we'll.
I think that would obviously have to wait until they set their goals.
No, not necessarily.
But wouldn't our goals have to coincide with theirs?
Well, maybe. I think if our goals came anywhere close to their old goals, it would be.
Their new goals are coming out shortly, right? Didn't they just have their
Yeah,
retreat?
they just met on Saturday,
that's
Friday
true.
and Saturday,
Yeah.
Sunday.
Looks like you got your work cut out for you.
There you go. Double my pay.
That's why you get the big bucks.
Yeah, that's right. And all the perks and benefits.
We're going to double your salary.
Well, that's a good segue into the election of officers. Tag, you're in.
Well, yeah, Bob, why don't we just move this right along? We could nominate Blaine for chair and maybe Steve for vice chair and move it right along.
I'll second that motion.
But I'm willing to give
Wait,
everybody
repeat
else
that.
an
You know
opportunity.
what? I'm just worried here. All of a sudden, it occurred to me that I haven't looked at our bylaws.
Well, I have, and we cannot nominate and elect a chair in the same meeting.
So we can nominate them tonight and then vote on them the next meeting.
That's right. That's what we'd have to do. Or we will get ourselves in the same situation the CIC is in.
Yeah.
And I sure don't want to see us do that.
Right. And so you actually, I didn't, Bob, and I don't have.
Yeah, I have them right here.
My
And
main
I've been-
binder is in my desk, so.
Yeah.
So does it speak specific to?
Well, it says, and it's funny here because it's contradiction in terms here too. Nominations and election of new officers shall be taken from the floor at the TAC meeting in October, and voting shall be in November.
Well, I missed it,
I guess we're ready.
so I have to do it. Wow.
And we only have 2 officers, correct? I mean,
Yeah.
we don't have a secretary. Because that would be, if we had a secretary, then that would be something we could say, you need to own the bylaws and.
Well, there's a change that will have to be made here in the bylaws, but I'm not going to go after that tonight. But at one point it says nominations and election of new officers shall take place in the meeting in October, and voting shall be in November. Well, I think nominations and election and voting means the same thing.
Yeah.
So we'll have to change the wording in that, but I don't want to get into that now. But the point is that I think that the nominations, like John said, should be done at this meeting, and then the election should be done at next month's meeting to keep us in sync to what the bylaws intend.
Agreed.
So, right, I'll move that we nominate Blaine and Steve.
I second that.
Any discussion?
And Steve?
I'm vice chair.
Yeah.
Does Blaine and Steve want to do that?
Blaine will.
I'm willing to do it. But if someone else wanted to do it, I've got a number of irons in the fire, and it's. So if someone like yourself, Fred, if you were interested, or John for sure, no. And Mike, you do it. He'll eat anything.
So if we wanted to stay consistent with our, with the bylaws, is this for a year, or do you think this should be through?
It's 1 year.
It's 1 year.
1 year.
So we're going to be then off next year. So what, we need to change the bylaws to match where we're at, or can we say in October we need to nominate again and right? So,
Yeah.
With this, next year, we'll be sure to get it done
So
when it should be.
So it's less. It's actually going to be less than a year.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And actually, when we have the vote to elect, we could set a specific term ending date that coincided with the minutes or the bylaws, so we would get it all in sync.
We could say calendar year.
Yeah. I think that would be the simplest to remember. Well, since most of I think all the terms end on a calendar year, right?
Is did Betty time out, or is she just gone?
No, she's out.
Okay, so she was the vice chair before.
Right.
She is
So
the
she-
vice chair.
She is the vice
Yeah,
chair.
she was. I think this was her second year as vice chair.
No, first.
Oh, first.
Yeah.
She could do it in one more year.
Did you talk to Betty, John?
I did not.
Or? Okay.
So it's been moved and seconded then, and all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Actually, can we just get a raise of hands? Just,
All
that'd
in
be
favor?
better. In favor. I got them all. They're all there.
So is this the actual election?
No, this is a nomination.
Nomination.
Use the
Okay.
word nomination.
Is this a good time to mention about next month?
Yes.
Maybe?
He said yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to be out of town.
Okay. Can you,
Whoever.
yeah,
What?
come in on Skype or
I can call in, right?
teleconference?
Can we come with you?
That's right.
Yeah, you can pay your own way.
All right. Any other agenda items for next month? All right. Well, with that, then we are adjourned. Thank you.